Last month, my wife and I went on a 2.5-week vacation to the UK, and I wanted to take one camera and one lens. What did I choose and how well it worked? Let's find out. Hello amigos, this is Pablo Garcia, the engineer photographer. As I mentioned in the intro, my wife and I spent 2.5 weeks in the UK just recently. We visited London, Bath, Oxford. We spent a week in the beautiful Lake District, and we finished our trip at Glasgow in Scotland. Now, we knew we were going to be doing a lot of walking, and I wanted to take just one camera and one lens. Why? One was the weight. I didn't want to be carrying a lot of weight. And the second one is I want to practice what I call shoot and move. When I go on vacation, I had to remind myself that this is a vacation, not a photography trip. And it can be very boring, right? For those that travel with us to wait and wait and wait while we compose a scene and take our time. So for me, it was about shoot and move, fast compositions, and by exception, maybe spend a little time at a location that was special or be able to come back to it by myself. So shoot and move and travel light. Now, what does travel light is for me? Well, as I told you, I was looking at one camera and one lens. I love my Canon R5 and the RF24 to 105 f4. This is a great combination, but it's not the lightest. It's 3.2 pounds, or let me look at my notes, almost 1.5 kilos. Not the lightest camera and lens combination. Great quality, but a little bit heavy. On the other hand, I have a Canon R7, and I needed to get a good light lens for it. And what I ended up getting was the RFS 18 to 150, designed especially for APS-C size sensor cameras like the R7. This ended up being a great combination. He only weighs, let me look at my notes, 1.8 pounds or a little over 800 grams. It's about 43% lighter than this other combination. So this is what I end up taking. Now, I had to buy this lens. I didn't have it. Brand new, this lens from Canon here in the US is about $500, and I didn't want to spend that kind of money. So I went to mpb.com and I bought a near new lens for about $370, I think what it cost me. This video is not sponsored by MPB, but I had very good luck with them. I had sold them one camera and a couple lenses, and I had bought two near new lenses from them. I think all were pretty good prices, reasonable prices. Sometimes we like to get more for our gear and spend less for other gear, but I think their prices were very reasonable, so I recommend it to you. So this trip worked great. We had a great time, and what I want to show you is how well did that camera did. Now, part of traveling light is I wanted to take just one strap, so I took Peak Design strap. This worked very well, and a 58mm circular polarizer to go with the lens, to use it especially in the Lake District. So that was all I had, in addition to my iPhone 12 Pro Max. You know, it's a couple years old now, but that was my backup camera. So one camera, one lens, and the iPhone. Now, we're gonna go to Lightroom, and I'm gonna show you images that I took all the way from 18mm to 150. You have to remember that with the APS-C size sensor, you have a factor of 1.6. So the lens 18 to 150 becomes basically 29 to 240 equivalent on a full frame sensor. So let's go to Lightroom. Let me show you a range of images from the widest to the longest and see how well this combination works. So here in Lightroom, this is believe this was taken at University of Glasgow. It was a very dark area. I'm at 18mm. I was able to capture the interior of this location. I think it came out pretty well. It's one shot. I was able to exposed for the highlights here in the background, and then open up the shadows. Was taken at ISO 2500. It's a little grainy, and I have not used the new denoise AI in Lightroom. This is using the standard luminosity reduction that is available in Lightroom. Still a little grainy, maybe with denoise in Lightroom or with Pure Raw 3, for example, I can get a very good noise-free image. But I like the composition. We do have that some of the edges, kind of wall in because we're at the wide angle, right? And we may be able to use the transform in Lightroom or your tool of choice to straighten everything. You just have to remember when you use wide angle to compose, give yourself a lot more room, because when you transform, you're gonna lose some of the image. Here's another image at 18mm in one of the colleges at Oxford. All these colleges were closed. We could just come into this area. This is Lincoln College at 18mm, and I wanted to capture the entrance to the college and the courtyard in the back. And again, one shot, I was able to open the shadows, and I think it did a pretty good job at 18mm. My favorite 18mm image is this one, taken at Hope Park in Keswick in the Lake District. I wanted to get the beautiful flowers in the foreground, and I focus on the flowers, and I wanted to capture the location, basically the grass, the other flowers, the scenic background. This one taken at ISO 800 at 18mm, and I think it will end up working pretty well. This lens at 18mm or the equivalent of 29mm on a full frame works very well. Other photos that I end up taking, now this one is at 28mm during one of our walks. I believe this was in Grasmere, one of the many farms that we cross on the public paths on our long walks. Here, this one is at 28mm, and allow me to compose, right? That's the flexibility of this lens, to be able to compose the scene like we wanted. Now going to 43mm, also in Grasmere, I believe, and here I wanted to capture this beautiful horse. Unfortunately, the horse didn't turn to me. Keep looking to the side. But we have the beautiful village in the back, the lake, the hills, and a very serene scene. And I was able to focus on the head of the horse using the Canon R7 animal tracking. One of my favorite images, this one at 45mm. This one is in Grasmere, taken from a hill. We had gone for a long walk on the north side of town, and then from the side of the hill overlooking Grasmere, and I wanted to capture a little bit more of a close-up of the lake and the hill behind it. And this one is taken at 45mm at f9, focusing in this area right here. And I think this one ended up working very well, doing my edits in Lightroom, creating a mask for the sky and a different mask for the foreground. And it captured really the essence of the Lake District. Now we move to 50mm, and this is one of the many beautiful farms that we cross in our long walks. And I wanted to capture again the location of where the farm resides among all the trees and the hills, and here we have the rock wall right in front of it. One of my favorite images of the trip is this one in the Lake District. This one I believe was in Ambleside. The trees, we went there towards the end of April, even though it was already spring. The trees were just beginning to get leaves. It's kind of cool over there. So we had a combination of trees with leaves and trees that were just beginning to get them. And here we have, beautiful rock building, the trees that are very photogenic in my view, the dark clouds, and this one was taken at 50mm. In Durgan Water, from Keswick, we took the launch, the boat that takes you to the different piers and crisscrosses the lake, and I was on front of the boat, and this beautiful swan just came in front of us. So I grabbed the camera at 50mm, so it wasn't very far, and I was able to use the animal eye tracking and capture the swan and capture basically the surrounding areas. This is at 50mm. Another photo from the Lake District. This one, I saw this red sailboat and I wanted to capture it, the glowing trees in the back, the hills, the mountains. This one was taken at 70mm. Going to London, and here we have Buckingham Palace, the traditional photo you have to take when you're in front of Buckingham Palace with the guard with the red jacket. This one again taken at 70 millimeters, and I think it came out pretty nice. Now back to the Lake District, now at 100 millimeters, and I wanted to capture this little peninsula with the trees that were just beginning to leaves and the hill in the back. Going back to London, Tower Bridge in London, taken from the side of the Thames River. I think we were on a boat going on the river, and here I wanted to capture the battleship with the bridge on the back, and this one is also at 100 millimeters. Pulling the lens a little more, now we have Big Ben. There were a lot of the preparations for the coronation of King Charles happening, and I think Big Ben had just gotten cleaned up because the sun was hitting it and the gold was just really bright. So I wanted to capture the detail of Big Ben. This one is at 122 millimeters. We also saw a lot of sheep. It was lambing season back in the Lake District, not in London. So this one is at 125 millimeters, and again using the Canon R7 eye tracking to lock on the eye of this beautiful sheep. Back in London, London Eye, this one is at 132 millimeters, and I wanted to compose capturing part of the structure of the London Eye and 3 of the gondolas or capsules that had people inside, and I was able to ride on one of those a few years back. We didn't do it on this trip, but I end up liking this composition. Now in Bath, now we're at the extreme of the lens. This is at 150 millimeters. We saw this couple in one of the parks in Bath. This young man dressed with an old military uniform from the UK, and somebody, probably the girlfriend, taking a photo for their social accounts. And at 150 millimeters, I didn't intrude. I was able to take this photo from a distance from them. One of my favorite photos of the whole trip is this one back in the Lake District. We were on the side of a hill during one of our long walks. And at 150 millimeters, I wanted to capture the essence of this farm with the white buildings, all the trees, so many of them with leaves. Others were just beginning to get the leaves, the green grass. And I believe this photo is really, really nice. It's one of my favorite images. As I mentioned earlier, this was lambing season. So we found many areas with lambs, baby lambs, different colors, white, black, gray. And this one also at 150 millimeters. And I was able to focus on these guys right here. And finally, also at 150 millimeters, we had this pheasant that during one of our walks, came up, posed for us for a few seconds, and then he went his merry way. Beautiful colors. The light was hitting him just right. And with the eye tracking, I was able to lock very quickly on the eye. And again, shoot and move. In this case, shoot with the camera, not with a shotgun. So I took a photograph and then the bird moved away. Now, in addition to these images from 18 to 150, the lens also focuses relatively close. So at 150 millimeters, I was able to take this macro style photo of these beautiful little flowers that were just coming up. They had significant detail. It took a few tries, but I was able to lock manually on the flower, and then with high-speed shutter, just take multiple images, and a couple of those were in fairly good focus. Another thing I like to do with the camera is take panos. In one of the colleges at Oxford, we got permission to come into the courtyard, and I wanted to do a pano. So at 18 millimeters, I took 3 images in horizontal orientation. This is 1, 2, 3, and in Lightroom, create a pano that looked like this. So this is the combined panel, everything done in Lightroom. There is some distortion because, like I say, I was at 18 millimeter. We can see the curve here on this building, curve in these other ones. We may be able to do corrections in Lightroom or Photoshop using transform. But I think like this, this image works well as a snapshot to remember our visit to this location. I told you that my backup camera was the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And I like that iPhone because with the iPhones, you can very quickly pull it out and do panos as well. It's easier to do a pano on the phone. The R7, you can do panos in JPEG, just like with the iPhone, but I find it easier to do it on the iPhone. And I just pulled an iPhone and I did this pano. We were standing in the observatory at Greenwich, overlooking London, the city of London. And again, this one is not the best image, but it's a good snapshot to remember a trip. In Oxford, we were able to pull up the phone, and this time I spent a little bit more time composing with the iPhone and using one of the 3 cameras, and this one I think came out pretty good. And Glasgow, I didn't have my camera with me, I only had the iPhone. It was raining pretty hard, so that day I left the camera in the hotel, and the iPhone becomes a very good backup camera. In this case, this is a very famous area of Glasgow with the statue and the cones that they like to put on the statue. So the iPhone I think ended up complementing the R7, especially for snapshots that I wanted to take in some locations as part of traveling light and shoot and move. Well, amigos, here I just show you some of the images that I was able to take. Where's my camera? With the R7 and the RFS 18-150. I think this is a great light combination for travel photography. They're light and it's flexible, and you can get great images. I think the RFS 18-150 complements or pairs with the R7 extremely well. The other thing that I like is that the lens is not too expensive. You know, $500, okay, maybe we don't want to spend that kind of money, but you can find some good quality near new lenses like that one at places like MPB and a few others. I hope you like this video, how well that combination worked for vacation photography, and don't forget to subscribe to my videos. Now that I'm back, I'll be doing them weekly or bi-weekly, and please send me your comments, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.